All right, count it out, listeners. Tyler here. I am with WWE Hall of Famer, former Intercontinental Champion, former Tag Team Champion, one half of Strikeforce, the legendary Tito Santana. Mr. Santana, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes here to do this.
You're very welcome, Tyler. Looking forward to this amazing interview that you're going to conduct right here.
Well, we are in Canada right now, and I can't have you in Canada and not talk about your former tag team partner in Strikeforce, legendary Rick Martel. What was so magical about you and Rick together that made Strikeforce work?
I just think that we just complemented each other's style. I could carry my load, and he could carry his load. We didn't have to worry about one person letting the other person down. So, and the fans just went crazy over us, from the very first day. It was good to have the fans behind us. I mean, I just wish it would have gone a little bit longer, but it is what it is.
Absolutely, absolutely. You guys had the big moment defeating the Hart Foundation for the Tag Team Championship. What was that? What did that mean to you to all those years later win the tag team titles again in that different era of the WWF and working specifically with the Hart Foundation?
Well, the second time around, my first time around, as you know, I was tag team champions with Ivan Putski in 1979. So a few years later, I'm teaming up with Rick Martel, and the business had grown by bounds, and it's just huge all of a sudden. And to be the world tag team champions in the WWF at the time was unbelievable.
Working with Bret Hart as well, specifically, you guys were the first two participants in the very first ever Royal Rumble, also here in Canada. You won the tag team titles with them. How much good times did you have working with Bret?
Well, Bret Hart is one of the best performers ever in the history of professional wrestling. He came from a family that, wrestlers, and I think he was the best of the group. And he had an amazing career, and our styles again, we mixed it up pretty good, and the people loved watching us compete against each other, and it was usually a great contest.
Absolutely, it was. I want to go back to WrestleMania here, talk a little bit about your WrestleManias. You had the honor of being in the first ever WrestleMania matchup of all time. A lot of people kind of thought at the time that you maybe were going to be in that IC title match with Greg Valentine with your guys' history. But do you look back on that now and think like what an honor it is to be in that first match, that you were trusted to kick off what turned into the biggest thing in wrestling history?
Yes, I know you know this. The feud that I had with Greg the Hammer Valentine was the hottest feud in the WWF at the moment. We had the hottest feud. We had been wrestling for each other. The fans were crazy. They wanted me to see me kick his ass. And when I found out I was going to be the opening match, I was totally disappointed. Not until Vince McMahon, right before I went through the curtains for the opening match, Vince McMahon came up to me and he says, Tito, the reason you are the first match is because we need to set the tempo. You need to get the people off their butts, and you're the one that can do it. And I gave you that honor. And I mean, my attitude changed immediately when he told me that. And now, many years later, it's a nostalgia question. Who was the opening match in WrestleMania 1? And only Tito Santana will be able to say, it was I
100%.
Who was the opening match.
100%. And that wasn't your only WrestleMania opening match as well. WrestleMania 8, Shawn Michaels. You guys have that intense stare down. What do you remember about working with Shawn at WrestleMania 8?
Well, everybody knew that Shawn Michaels was an up-and-coming star. I mean, he was a fantastic worker. He was a fantastic wrestler. I think he was being managed by Sherry Martel. I mean, he took the world by storm when he left Marty Jannetty and went on his own. I mean, he turned out to be one of the best heels. Fantastic worker again, and I just wish we would have had more time because the match could have. A lot of people tell me what a great match it was. It was a great match, but I wish I would have been able to have a few more minutes to to perform a better match.
Absolutely. We'll go back to WrestleMania 4. You're defending the tag team championships against Demolition. We're now seeing Demolition finally signed to a WWE Legends deal. You think that they're finally going to get that long overdue nod into the Hall of Fame?
I hope so. I mean, who better deserves to be in the Hall of Fame than those guys? You know, they were a fantastic tag team. I mean, they were tough. Those guys used to beat you up like they were beating a drum. I mean, they hammer your back, and me and Rick would be dying to get out of the ring because they were beating the crap out of us.
I guess they live up to the name, Axe and Smash.
Yeah, they were big boys. I mean, they still are big boys.
Speaking of the Hall of Fame, take me back to that night for you and just what that meant for you, how you found out you were going in, and then the overall experience for you.
Well, I went into the Hall of Fame in 2004. I had left the WWF in 1993, so I hadn't been watching wrestling. I hadn't been watching the WWF. When Howard Finkel called me to be to tell me that I was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then he told me who I was going to be inducted with, and that was a great class.
Yeah.
You know, a bunch of really, really good wrestlers going into that 2004 Hall of Fame. I didn't realize how big. He flew my family from Texas. He sent 2 limousines to my house to pick us up. He gave us 5 hotel rooms in the Hyatt Regency. And when we got off, I mean, I didn't realize how big it had grown. I saw fans from all over the world. And I was like on the red carpet of Hollywood, you know, the fans coming up and, you know, wanted my autograph as soon as I got out of the limousine. It was an amazing experience. And, you know, at first I wasn't going to do it until they told me how much I was going to get paid. Then they gave me an interest. But I would have really regretted it if I had turned it down because I didn't realize how much wrestling had grown, just like the growth that it's taking place right now. I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, they're going back and signing a bunch of the legends. I signed my contract, I think, in October.
Wow.
You know, and hopefully they come up with you know, new figures and put me in games and, you know, revive my career.
Absolutely. What was your experience like? And you were on Saturday Night's Main Event there. They showed you on the crowd. What was it like going and seeing the WWE now compared to what it was when you were there?
Well, it's a different ball game. You know, it's not the wrestling is not the same. The wrestler is not. It's a smaller wrestler nowadays, but the stuff they do in the ring is, you know, is unbelievable. You know, they're fantastic acrobatics. They do some unbelievable risky maneuvers, and wrestling has just gotten so big.
Yeah,
and the wrestling fan is still responding like a wrestling fan. They love it.
And they had Jessie Venture back there too. I always associate Jessie with you. You know, he'd always give you a hard time on commentary, Tito Santana. But I really feel like that also separated you from a lot of talent too. Was that beneficial for you having Jessie call you out like that?
It was beneficial, and you know, that's where we got the title for this book. You know, Don't Call Me Chico. I mean, Jesse the Body was one of the best performers in the ring. He could get the most out of the least. You know, you didn't have to do too much with Jesse to get the crowd going crazy over you.
Absolutely. And you pulled the book out. Where can people find the book, Tito?
Well, they can find it on Facebook, order it through me, and they can send me, you know, the cash. I'll sign it. I'll ship it out to them. It's done pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's been really great with your time. Just a couple more quick questions. One of your more famous matches towards before your El Matador time, at least, you got to work with the Undertaker, a very young Undertaker over in overseas on one of the European tours, Barcelona. Yeah. Unbelievably hot crowd. What do you remember about that night working with the Undertaker?
Well, I had heard some rumors that, you know, they were interested in giving me a run with the world title, and then I mean, being in Barcelona, Spain, with the Hispanics, you know, I was over like $1 million there, and for me to beat the Undertaker in front of the crowd, I mean, there was a big explosion. The fans went crazy when I beat him. Uh, I believe that I was on my way to getting the world title, but I think what happened is the transition of the money, American money, to the peso was so weak. You know, you think the Canadian dollar is weak now
Yeah.
compared to the American money. The peso was, I think, 35 pesos to a dollar. You know, so it was pretty hard for Vince McMahon to turn a profit. You know, so I think that's why they went with Bret Hart in the Canadian dollar, because at that moment, I think the Canadian dollar was pretty strong back then.
Yeah, it was not bad back then.
Yeah.
Not what it is now.
I know when I played for the BC Lions in 1976, the Canadian dollar was worth more money than the American dollar.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was happy to get paid in Canadian money.
The last couple of questions I'll ask you, Mr. Santana. This has been an incredible conversation with you. Who were, if you could turn back the hands of time and relive one more opponent, who were some of your favorite guys that you got to get in the ring with?
Well, just guys that I enjoyed wrestling and having just knowing going in I was going to have a good match. If you remember, everybody back then was a good wrestler.
100%.
I mean, everybody were. No matter who you wrestled, you knew you were going to have a good match. My first choice, if I was going to choose somebody, I always say was Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
Yeah.
And I loved working with Kurt Hennig also.
Yeah.
And you know, God rest their soul, both of them. I believe they went very young. You know, especially Kurt Hennig. But you know, those are my two top choices.
And we can clear up the rumors also. Despite what Bobby Heenan says on WrestleMania 8, you're not related to Reba McEntire, correct?
I'm not related to Reba McEntire, no. I wish I was.
The last question I'm going to ask you, Mr. Santana, you've done so many incredible things in your entire career. And even today, you know, there's so many people here stopping by to see you. We've seen you at the WWE Legends deal now. When you look back on your entire career, what are some personal moments for you that just make you smile to think back on?
Well, probably my first biggest moment was, you know, I came from a town in Texas, population was 14,000. So when I stepped into Madison Square Garden my very first time and saw that huge amount of fans, you know, to me that was a very good experience. You know, probably tops everything, you know, because that was my first experience being in a huge arena.
Absolutely.
Sold out.
Absolutely. Well, Mr. Santana, I cannot thank you enough for taking a couple minutes out and having this conversation with me today. This was an absolute pleasure. You are deservingly in everything you've done. On behalf of Tito Santana, I am Tyler, and you have been counted out.
Arriba!